The material in this video was presented to MLA Court Ellingson on Friday, September 19, 2025, with the hope that Naheed Nenshi and the Alberta NDP will step up and lead the transformation of Canada. To start with, let me make the claim that people are not as polarized as it seems. Interest-based mediation helps people shift from an unproductive deadlock of incompatible positions to collaborative problem-solving. Parenting coordination can force high-conflict parents to effectively co-parent for the sake of the children. At the beginning of every speech that Naheed gives, he talks about doing politics differently. But for the remainder of every speech, he relentlessly attacks Danielle Smith and the UCP, which some people really like, but it's not very productive. In Naheed's defense, he has no choice. The political game currently imposes an attack style of play on all of the participants. Now, let's take an objective look at a few things. The British North America Act, commonly referred to as the Canadian Constitution, starts out as follows: an act for the Union of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, and the government thereof, and for the purposes connected therewith. Given that a constitution is the document that describes the way a society has decided to structure itself, it makes sense for a constitution to start with "We the people." I'm certain that everyone in Alberta and everyone in Canada will agree with this. The preamble of the United States is pretty good, especially when you consider that they were creating something that had never been done before. The preamble of Japan's constitution, written shortly after the end of the Second World War, is fantastic. I think all Albertans and all Canadians would like a constitution with a preamble that they can be proud of. Next, the Canadian Senate. Designed to provide regional representation as a counterbalance to representation by population, it started off fine, with the regions of Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes each getting the same number of senators. The map of Canada is now very different. Prince Edward Island has 4 senators. PEI's contribution to the national GDP, shown in green, is barely visible in this bar chart. Their percentage of the landmass is even smaller. Alberta and British Columbia contribute substantially to the national GDP, and they constitute a considerable portion of the landmass. They both have 6 senators. Quebec contributes a bit more to the national GDP and has a bit more landmass. Quebec gets 24 senators. When talk of Senate reform starts, most people lose interest and don't even try to understand. This bar chart presentation of the issue is easily understood, and even a child would readily see the unfairness. Next, the Canadian Parliament. Designed to provide equal representation for people, it's not currently doing that. MPs for ridings in Alberta and BC represent 3 times as many people as their counterparts in PEI. Consequently, the voting power of people in PEI is 3 times that of people in Alberta. As noted in the image, voting equality is not specifically stated in the Constitution, but courts have ruled that it's required. That said, no federal government has ever done anything to fix it, and they won't unless Albertans force it. Looking into this a bit more, voters in Desnathy, Massini, Mississippi, Churchill also have less influence on federal matters than voters in PEI, and the MP for that riding has an enormous area to serve. Again, even a child can readily see the unfairness. Next, equalization. The report of the Royal Commission on Dominion-Provincial Relations expressed, whether the remedy lies in emigration from these areas or in the development of alternative means of livelihood, they must not be allowed to become backwaters of illiteracy and disease. Not only national duty and decency, if Canada is to be a nation at all, but equity and national self-interest demand that the residents of these areas be given average services and equal opportunities. Quebec is certainly not at risk of becoming a backwaters. It goes on to express equity because these areas may have been impoverished by the national economic policies which enriched other areas and which were adopted in the general interest. Those whose interests were sacrificed have some claim that the partnership should work both ways. This makes sense and is a fair approach, but canola farmers are not being compensated. Canada was designed in a colonial era by elites with an exploitative mindset. In 1904, the year before Alberta was created, Clifford Sifton, Canada's Interior Minister, said, "We desire, in fact every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our own people in the East, to build up our factories and our workshops of Eastern Canada, and contribute in every way to our prosperity. If my brother falls on hard times or has a long-term disability, I'm willing to help. But he needs to come with a business plan and ask. There's no way I would tolerate my parents taking a substantial portion of my income for an indefinite period of time and giving it to some of my siblings. Regardless of what percentage of Albertans want to, quote, separate, and what percentage want to, quote, remain in Canada, I suggest to everyone, never be so sure of what you want that you miss out on something better." I think this emoji represents the perspective of most of the people in the Remain in Canada camp. Others are like the frog being boiled, oblivious to the deterioration of a country that used to punch above its weight. There's an endless array of charts that show this deterioration. Some people are more like this fellow on the couch. If he wakes up in time to vote on anything, it won't be to continue with the status quo. More and more people are considering things. Some people are fully aware of what's been happening, but they think that nothing will ever change. Personally, I think we have a one-of-a-kind opportunity to create a country that is better than anything else on the planet. In 1867, in a colonial era, upper-class people designed a top-down democracy that was suited to the travel and communication realities of the times. In 2025, in a technological era that gives everyone unlimited access to information, video conferencing that transcends travel, and diverse communication capabilities, our woefully outdated democracy needs to be redesigned to match the pace and complexity of our times. One that reduces polarization, fosters collaboration and consensus building, quickly accomplishes things when there's widespread agreement, doesn't concentrate power and control, every vote has some influence and value, doesn't unduly favor the main established parties, doesn't unduly impede new parties that may have significant appeal to a large number of voters, eliminates or at least minimizes strategic voting, maximizes the amount of information that an election can provide, provides mechanisms for individual citizens to have real input and influence, fosters honesty and transparency, minimizes the need for by-elections, accommodates regional differences as well as urban-rural differences, creates an environment where innovative ideas can be identified, explored, and where their merit implemented, accommodates multiple social ideologies, and does not attempt to impose one ideology on everyone. If not Albertans right now, then who and when? There are no doubt countless people across Alberta and across Canada that have good ideas on how to improve things. One of mine is to give the leaders of the top 5 political parties a seat in the legislature. It makes no sense for the premier of the province to be the MLA for a particular riding. Either they have access to the premier that people in other ridings don't have, or their MLA is too busy with provincial matters to give time and attention to the riding. This would avoid by-elections. When a party selects a new leader, they get to work the next day. 5 party leaders at the table ensures diversity of thought and means that every vote has some degree of impact. Federally, I think it should be the leaders of the top 7 parties. To reduce polarization, the process has to force the 2 main parties to work together in a functional way. Elect 2 representatives for each riding. Since the 2 representatives both represent the same group of people, they have to vote the same on every piece of legislation. If they can't agree, then they have to seek direction from their constituents. If a consensus with the constituents doesn't emerge, then a solution that accommodates multiple preferences must be created. Using a ranked ballot will dramatically change the tone of political campaigns, which citizens have been calling for a long time. Note that the ranked ballots have to be processed in a particular way so that the choice is always the person that is preferred by the most people to the greatest degree. Elected representatives should function more like a board of directors for a company or organization. When Danielle Smith won the 2023 election, she had 48 people to choose from when trying to fill all of the ministerial positions. These are very important roles, and they should be filled by people that are highly qualified. Rachel Notley had 53 people to choose from, but some of them had no experience or qualifications at all. So my idea is that the elected representatives find someone for each of the ministerial positions, and then citizens are given an opportunity to approve or not. Since these people should each be of a very high caliber, and for the most part will be nonpartisan, an approval rating of greater than 70% would be required. This forces the elected representatives collectively to do a very good job of picking people. The approval voting would be staggered by 2 years from the representative elections. That provides some continuity. If a minister needs to be replaced, the elected representatives, including the 5-party leaders, select a replacement and then seek approval from the citizens. The same process would apply to the selection of the premiers and the prime minister. The elected representatives and party leaders would search for the best possible person, someone that is smart, well-spoken, experienced, and trustworthy, someone that will be approved of by over 70% of the people. Right now, party leaders fight relentlessly for the opportunity of being the premier or prime minister. This doesn't serve the citizens well. In a well-designed democratic system, party leaders will still compete against one another for sure, but if they conduct themselves like the athletes we admire most, Wayne Gretzky, Jerome McGinley, Steve Yzerman, the well-designed system will positively reinforce that.